Good morning, Morai Rabotai, Beruchim Abayim. We're continuing on Masechet Rosh Hashanah, and we are on Daf Zayin Amud Bet, 13 lines down from the top of the Amud. Today's Amud is being learned as a Schut Rufah Shenema for Daniel Moshe ben Farangis, Rachel Simcha bat Nahid. Also learned Leilui Nishmat Betzalel ben Rafael, Esther, dedicated by Mabubi family, and Esther bat Naftali Tzvi HaLevi, dedicated by Abraham family. This month's learning of the community has been graciously dedicated by Mahbubi family and Shei families. It should be an ultimate schut for all their mishpachot. Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. So we finally finished the first words of the Mishnah. The explanation took us until Daf Zayin Amud Bet to explain Be'echad benisan Rosh Hashanah limlachim velirgalim. So let us have a 1-minute recap of what exactly it is, because we need a recap for today as well. We mentioned obviously that Rosh Hashanah limlachim is simple, Malchei Yisrael. We count from Echad benisan, and regalim means the isur abal tacher. If you make a neder to bring a korban, you have 3 regalim to bring it. Now, we mentioned that this is not so simple. It's 5-way machloket tanaim. Which one we follow? It's really the shita. In our Mishnah is the shita of Rabbi Shimon. What did Rabbi Shimon hold? Rabbi Shimon holds that you have 3 regalim, and it has to be in order of Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot for you to be transgressing the Bal Tacher. In other words, not just any 3 regalim have to pass, but it has to be in that order. So therefore, if you, for instance, made a neder immediately after Pesach, then you're not going to be over until 5 regalim, because when Shavuot comes, your clock even hasn't started. When Sukkot comes, still hasn't started. Until the next Pesach, almost a full year later, then your clock starts, then you have Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, because that's in order. That's Rabbi Shimon, which we mentioned is going to be our Tana there, because that's the only case that they think even matters to have a Rosh Hashanah regalim. What does it mean, Rosh Hashanah regalim? That the clock starts by Nisan, right? And we also mentioned, parenthetically, which is going to be important parentheses, that this whole thing of Rosh Hashanah regalim is not really Echad ben Nisan, even though that the Mishnah makes it sound like it's Echad ben Nisan, really is 15th of Nisan, right? This becomes relevant immediately. And then we had 4 other shitot, right? Rabbi Meir holds regalim, you're over right away. One bite on an apple, you get 1 strike out. The first regal comes, you don't bring it, you're already in transgression of Al Tacher. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said 2 regalim. Right? Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon said only Sukkot. Tanakama held 3 regalim from wherever you. Right? Those are the 5 shitas that we had. Now that we finally finished this, we're ready now to see the second item on our Mishnah. Second line is Be'echad be'elul Rosh Hashanah le'Maaser Behema. First day of Elul is Rosh Hashanah for Maaser Behema, and then the Mishnah also says that that's not a simple item, either because Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon omrim be'echad betishrei. So there is machloket, when is Rosh Hashanah for Maaser Behema? Is it Rosh Chodesh Elul? Is it Rosh Chodesh Tishrei? Now, what is this item of Maaser Behema? We mentioned that by Maserot in general, by Maaser Behema as well, when you tide your animals, every year it has to be a Maaser from that year's flock. When the babies, the new babies that are born in your cattle, you have to give a Maaser to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that Maaser cannot be separated from the babies of last year or babies of next year. It has to be this year's, right? From the crowd that was born this year, you have to check out a Maaser. Now, whenever you say that, you have to have a beginning and the end of the year. If you say this year's. So when is the Rosh Hashanah? Either is going to be Rosh Chodesh Elul, according to the Stam Mishnah, or according to Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, will be Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, which is Rosh Hashanah, right? The Rosh Hashanah. That's the Gemara says, who is the opinion that holds Rosh Chodesh Elul? We have it in our Mishnah anonymously as a Stam Mishnah, right? Stam Mishnah, we have it at the Stam. Now, who is Stam Mishnah, by the way? Rabbi Meir, where does it say that? Chacham? Huh? Go through Shas, and Rubin, Daf Yud Gimel, Amud Aleph, going through Amud Bet. That's where it says Stam Mishnah Rabbi Meir, right? Says the Gemara is actually accurate over here. Take a look. Again, 13 lines down. Be'echad be'elul Rosh Hashanah l'ma'aser be'ema. Mani, says the Gemara, who is this that holds that Rosh Chodesh Elul is not just the day you start Slichot, but is also Ma'aser Be'ema, Rosh Hashanah l'ma'aser be'ema. Mani, Rabbi Meir. How do I know that this is Rabbi Meir? Because the Braita says it's black and white clear. Our Mishnah mentions it as a Stam Mishnah. But the Braita says it clear. Rabbi Meir Omer Be'echad Be'elul Rosh Hashanah L'Maaser Be'ema. Rabbi Meir is the one that holds Rosh Chodesh Elul is your Rosh Hashanah L'Maaser Be'ema. That means a baby animal that was born before Echad Be'elul, last day of Av, and a baby animal that was born after Rosh Chodesh Elul, they cannot be in the same crowd when you want to tight your animals. One of them is for this past year, one of them is going to be for next year. So now we have a little clarity in our Mishnah. Rabbi Meir holds Rosh Chodesh Elul is, and Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon hold is Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, which is Rosh Hashanah. Okay? Now the Gemara starts scratching its head very hard. It says, wait a second. Now I have a problem reading the Mishnah because the Mishnah has an author. We mentioned Stam Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, right? Because these things have rules and regulations how they are written. When Rabbi Yehuda Nasi wrote this, it chose certain rules by which he obeys to write the Mishnah. So now we have, I even encourage you to take a look back at the Mishnah. Arba'a Rashi Shanimim. We have 4 Rosh Hashanahs. Be'echad benisan Rosh Hashanah le'melachim. Again, this is the Mishnah does not tell you who this is. It says Be'echad benisan is Rosh Hashanah le'melachim ve'largalim. Who is it? It doesn't say in the Mishnah. Now we know who it is. Who is it? Rabbi Shimon. We just mentioned the beginning of the shiur that that's Rabbi Shimon. The 5 shitas that we have. And the only one that requires a Rosh Hashanah regalim for Bal Ta'acher, that the clock starts and it has to be in that order of regalim, Pesach, Shavuot, it's Rabbi Shimon. So clearly, first line of the Mishnah, even though that said at Stam Mishnah, is Rabbi Shimon. The second line says, Be'echad be'elul Rosh Hashanah l'ma'aser b'ma. Who's that? Rabbi Meir. And to make things even worse, it says, Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, which we started the Mishnah with, all is Be'echad B'Tishrei. So, you start with Rabbi Shimon, then you go to Rabbi Meir, then you go back to Rabbi Shimon. This is a very strange way of writing the Mishnah. I would be okay with Rabbi Meir being the Stam Mishnah. But when I figured out that Stam Mishnah is not Rabbi Meir, but Rabbi Shimon in the first line, I was like, okay, I could deal with it. But now you're telling me the second line is Rabbi Meir. So you have to make your mind how this works. Now, another question that the Gemara is going to bring, and I'm going to just explain it right now because we're at it, is how many Rashi Shanim are actually mentioned in the Mishnah? The Mishnah says 4, but it's really 5. Because we just got finished saying, parenthetically that we said, right, that my Rosh Hashanah Regalim is not really Echad ben Nisan, but rather it is 15th of Nisan, right? So really, Echad ben Nisan is Rosh Hashanah le'melachim. 15th of Nisan is Rosh Hashanah Regalim. Echad be'elul, right, is Rosh Hashanah le'maser be'ema. That's 3, and then you have 2 more afterwards, right? So it's not really 4, it's 5. According to Rabbi Meir, if Rabbi Meir was Stam Mishnah, it would be 4. Why? Because according to Rabbi Meir, you don't have Rosh Hashanah regalim, because there's no Rosh Hashanah regalim. Whenever you make a neder, next regal you're over, right? So that would be 4. But now that you're telling me that's Rabbi Shimon, and then Rosh Hashanah the Maaser Be'ema is Rabbi Meir, now you have 5. You have the regalim, the melachim, the Maaser Be'ema, and then you have the other 2. That's going to be the follow-up question of how do you even put this Mishnah together when you read it? It's easy when you don't know the Gemara and you read the Mishnah. It's a Chazak Baruch. Start learning it. You say, okay, wait a second. I can't put the Resha, the Seifa, the Mitziata. Can't put them together. So that's the next 10 lines. We're going to answer all these questions. Bear with me and listen in. Says the Gemara. So mani says, mani. This is Maaser Be'ema, right? You have it. The line starts with Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir Omer Be'echad Be'elul Rosh Hashanah leMaaser Be'ema. So we know that our Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, the Stam Mishnah. Then the Gemara says, "V'lirgalim mani," who is the Tana of our Mishnah, the Tana Kama, the Stam Mishnah of our Mishnah by Regalim, that the fact that you have to wait for a Pesach Shavuot Sukkot in order for you to be over on Baltacher, Rabbi Shimoni. Now let's go back to the end. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon are the ones who disagree with Rabbi Meir by Maaser Behema, and they say Echad B'Tisri is Rosh Hashanah leMaaser Behema. So the Gemara asks now the question that we explained already outside. Reisha v'Sefa Rabbi Shimon u'Metziata Rabbi Meir. The beginning of the Mishnah, the end of the Mishnah is Rabbi Shimon, and the middle, smack in the middle, is Rabbi Meir. How do you write a Mishnah like this? Who is the Tana of our Mishnah? The Gemara says, no, don't get excited. The answer to your question says, Rav Yosef, Amar, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi, Menasiv le'ali b'de Tanai. This is the author of the Mishnah. Of course, we know is Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. So instead, sometimes he chooses a Tarakama for the Mishnah, but sometimes he himself is the one writing it. He's the one that's paskening it, because he didn't feel comfortable with any of the Shitot of the Tanaim alone, and he is taking sides and picking and choosing for different halachot. He's paskening like different Tanaim. Regalim savar lach Rabbi Shimon. When it comes to the Yisur of Baltacher, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi paskins like Rabbi Shimon, which is the most lenient shita, that you have to go, in order to be over on Baltacher, you have to go through 3 regalim in order of Pesach Shavuot Sukkot. When it comes to Maaser Be'ema, he paskins like Rabbi Meir. Maaser Be'ema savarla Rabbi Meir. He disagrees with Rabbi Shimon there. That's not Rosh Hashanah, as we know it's Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, but it's rather Rosh Chodesh Elul. That's Rosh Hashanah leMaaser Be'ema. The Gemara now says, okay, now that you told me this, I'm going to ask you my second question, which we also explained outside. Yohachi, if you're saying that the Tana of our Mishnah is Rebbe, then you for sure are stuck with the second question, which is, we have 5 Rosh Hashanim now, not 4. If you would tell me that the Mishnah is entirely Rabbi Meir, the Tarakama, then I wouldn't have this question, as we explained, because Rabbi Meir does not hold that Vav Ben Nisan is Rosh Hashanah L'Regalim. Such thing does not even exist in his calendar. Because according to him, you make a neder, you have to pay it right away. First the regal comes, you don't pay, you're toast. Right? So, but if you tell me that Rebbe is not paskening like Rabbi Meir by Regalim, so how many Rosh Hashanahs does Rebbe have? Right? If you go through the whole Mishnah, Rebbe has Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Lachim, Tetvav Benisan for Regalim, Rosh Chodesh Elul because he paskins like Rabbi Meir for Maaser Behema, Echad B'Tishri, which is we know it as Rosh Hashanah, is for Shanim and Yovelot, and Rosh Chodesh Shvat or Tetvav B'Shvat is. So how can Rebbe, who is the author, start Arba Rosh Hashanimim? That becomes now a bomb question once you tell me that his Rebbe is almost like a setup for a knockout, right? Says, who is it? He says, oh, it's Rebbe. So fine, it's Rebbe. Then he has 5. It's not 4. What are you saying for? Says the Gemara. Gemara is going to give number of answers for this, right? So you got to go through them. Each one is pretty simple and straightforward. So you have to keep your mind on it because you got to go through a bunch of answers. So says the Gemara. It's really not 4. It's 5 Rosh Hashanim. Amar Rava. Rava is the first answer. Arba'a ledivre akol. When he means Arba'a is, Rebbe is telling you every one of the Tanaim has 4, not 5. This Akol ends up being 5. Each one of the Tanaim has 4. Let's discuss this outside before we see it. Very simple. Rabbi Meir, we already explained. Rabbi Meir doesn't have Rosh Hashanah Regalim, right? He has 4 Maser Be'ema, but doesn't have Regalim. So for him, Rosh Chodesh Nisan is Melachim, right? Then you jump into Rosh Chodesh Elul for Maser Be'ema. There's no Regalim over here, right? And then you have the other 2, so it's 4. According to Rabbi Shimon, also we have only 4. Why? Because Rosh Hashanah for Maser Be'ema is when? Chad B'Tishrei. Chad B'Tishrei already is a Rosh Hashanah for Shanim V'Yovedot. So it's not a separate count. So according to Rabbi Shimon, you have Rosh Chodesh Nisan for Melachim. Then Rosh Hashanah Regalim is Tetvav B'Nisan. But then you don't have Echad Be'elul, right? You only have Echad B'Tishrei and then Echad or Tetvav B'Shvat. So it's 4. So when the Mishnah says Arba'a Rosh Hashanim, he's telling you every one of the Tanaim on this table holds that there are 4 Rosh Hashanim. The way I paskin, says Rabbi Utanasi, will end up with 5, but that's because I'm taking sides. But really, every one of them holds it's Arba'a Rosh Hashanim. So says the Gemara, Redivre Akol is Arba'a. Let Rabbi Meir Arba'a. According to Rabbi Meir is 4 because Dal Regalim, take out Petvaf Benisan the Regalim because he doesn't hold of that. The first regal he got to be over. The Rabbi Shimon Arba'a. According to Rabbi Shimon is also 4 because Dal Maser Be'ema. Take out Maser Be'ema, which is Rosh Chodesh Elul, because he holds is Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, which is already counted, right, for Rosh Hashanah Shanim V'Yovelot. Says the Gemara. That's Rava. From Nachman Bar Yitzchak gives a different answer. From Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar Arba'a Chodashim Ubahen Rosh Hashanim. Says no. When he means Arba'a Rosh Hashanim means there are 4 months during the 12 months of the year or 13 months of the year that are considered Rosh Hashanah. Now, some of these months have more than 1 Rosh Hashanah in them. There are a bunch. We'll see just in a moment additional Rosh Hashanahs as well. But Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak holds that Nisan is counted as 1. Even though that in Nisan you have Rosh Chodesh Nisan and Tetvav Ben Nisan, both of them are counted as 1. And that actually is very sensible because our Mishnah in Daf Bet Amud Aleph, when it starts saying Arba'a Rosh Hashanimim, it says Be'echad Ben Nisan Rosh Hashanah leMelachim ve'Regalim. Counts them as 1, right? Only later we had to go and say, oh, well, this Echad Ben Nisan that it says is not really Echad Ben Nisan, it's Tetvav. Why don't you count it as 2? According to Rav Nachman, it's very sensible because we're counting the Chodesh Nisan. Chodesh Nisan is considered 1 month that he has Rosh Hashanah in it. It happens to be has 2 different Rosh Hashanahs in it, but we count it as 1 because it's all in Nisan. That's what Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, right? So there's 4 months that are considered Rosh Hashanim, but in them you have a bunch of Rosh Hashanahs more than 4. Happens to be, according to Rebbe, is going to be 5. Now the Chachmei Bet HaMidrash, they're listening to these answers, right? Rava, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, right? Rava says according to every one of the Tanaim is 4. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says no, it's 4 months. And the Chachmei Bet HaMidrash says wait a second. Let's read a Braita to you. The Braita says Metive in the Bet HaMidrash. They asked Tisha Asar Benisan. You thought that this is the only. But the 16th day of Nisan, the 15th day is Rosh Hashanah Regalim. 16th day, the day after that, is also a Rosh Hashanah. You know what? It's a favorite Rosh Hashanah of mine. Why? Because that's Rosh Hashanah le'omer. It's until Korban Omer is brought on the second day of Pesach, it is asur to eat chadash. It's isur deoraita, right? Hence, everyone around this table keeps yashan, of course, right? Jews keep yashan. Why? Because until it says until you bring taviachem et korban elokechem, you have to eat yashan until you bring korban omer. So really, Rosh Hashanah for eating the new tvua is on 16th of Nisan. Says the Gemara, and Shisha Sivan. This is continuing in the same Braita. The 6th day of Sivan is Rosh Hashanah Lishtei Alechem, right? That's for bringing korbanot from the new thing, because the Shtei Alechem and Shavuot was brought on Shavuot, on 6th day of Sivan. So we have additional Rosh Hashanahs over here in the Braita that's mentioned, and our Mishnah doesn't count them. So Chachmei Bet Midrash asks, wait a second. The Rava Nishisha. Still, our Mishnah should say 6, according to Rava, because there are 2 additional ones, right? And these ones don't seem to be an argument amongst Tanaim, right? Everyone agrees that Rosh Hashanah for Omer, for Chadash, is 16th of Nisan. Everybody holds that Rosh Hashanah for Shtei Alechem is 6th of Sivan, right? 16th of Nisan and 6th of Sivan is according to everyone. So according to Rava, if you put it in, it should be really in our Mishnah. Doesn't say it. And even according to Rab Nachman, that we count months. So, okay, 16th of Nisan, you're not going to count as extra because Nisan is already counted for. But we had no Shonahs in Sivan. So it should still at least be 5. Rab Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Litni Chamisha, at least it should be 5. So that prompts Rav Papa to give an answer for it. Says Rav Papa, midi meurta. What we count is things that happen to start from night, as the Jewish day starts at night. But the Rosh Hashanahs that start from the day, we don't count, right? And these things, both Korban Omer and Korban Shtei Alechem is brought during the day, right? You can't eat you can't eat Chadash, you can't eat it, you can't eat it, you can't eat it. Leil Pesach, you can't eat it until the second day morning. After they bring the Korban Omer, then you can eat it. So really, Rosh Hashanah for Chadash starts in the morning. We're not counting things that start in the mornings. For Shtei Alechem, until they bring the Korban. When do they bring it? At night. Morning they bring it. Until they bring it, you can't. Afterwards, you can't. So therefore, we're not counting things that start during the day. Simple answer. Or so we thought, right? Says the Gemara, Midi d'lochayil meurta lo kachashiv. Ve'harei regalim d'lo chayli meurta. Says the Gemara, wait a second. Regalim themselves don't start from night. What's regalim? Meaning the Isura Bal Tacher. Where are you over on Isura Bal Tacher? Not at night. In other words, when we said that you're going to wait and be over 3 regalim, where does it start? It starts after the Korban Tamid Shel Shachar of the morning of the Chag. Because that's the Zaman, that's the time. Even up until then, you're not over on Bal Tacher. So says Maram, once you're at it, this also depends. You're telling me that and on bringing Omer and Shtei Alechem, this also depends on bringing Korban Shachar of the Yom Tov morning. So therefore, that also should be the same problem, starting from the morning, not from the night. I said, correct, very nice attempt, but you made one error. And what the error is, it doesn't start from then. It ends there. When you make a neder, I'm going to bring this korban to Hashem. When does my neder start? Now. Starts from now. I'm not over until I wait. I'm lazy enough to wait 3 regalim in order. Then I'm over on Bal Tacher. But it's not the Rosh Hashanah of it is not then. I'm over after three regalim in the morning of. My start point is, whenever I do it, it starts the day of. It starts from the night. Has no night and day. In other words, says the Gemara, once you have to bring the korban that you made a neder from the very beginning, you're chayav from the very beginning. It's not that you're over in the morning. That's only the end of it. But you've started already from the very beginning, and it's standing on your head, the obligation. Gemara says same thing for yovelot. This is a stronger kasha. For Rosh Hashanah, for yovelot, when does yovel start? We assume on Yom Kippurim of the 50th year, right? In the afternoon, they would blow shofar. During the day of Yom Kippur, they would blow shofar, and that would be the yovel would start. The avadim have to go home, and so on and so forth. So that doesn't start from night. That you have to wait until you blow the shofar, says the Gemara. That for sure starts then, right? Gemara says you're correct. That would be a kasha, but we hold here like Rabbi Ishmael ben Osher, Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. The Kachashiv, says Rabbi Ishmael ben Osher, Rabbi Yochanan ben Berokai. The Mishnah is, our Mishnah is holding like Rabbi Ishmael ben Osher, Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. Rosh Hashanah Chayil Yovel. Yovel really starts from Rosh Hashanah. There is a function of Yovel for sending the Avadim that you blow the shofar for, but the real Shnat HaYovel for all of its intents and purposes started from Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Ishmael ben Osher, Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, and we hold like him. So therefore, if that starts from Rosh Hashanah, starts from when? From night before Echad B'Tishrei. So therefore, we don't have a kasha. So basically, we fend off the questions that were brought in the Beit HaMidrash. So says the Gemara, Rav Shaisha Bred Rav Idi Amar, he answered a different answer. Rav Shaisha Bred Rav Idi said, Ki kachashiv midi de lo tali b'maaseh. Midi de tali b'maaseh, lo kachashiv. All the things that are Ba'ar Hashem that Mishnah mentioned in Daf Bet Amud have nothing to do with you doing something. They come automatically, right? You sit there and Rosh Hashanah comes, right? Comes by itself. But these things you have to do, you have to bring a korban omer. You have to bring a korban shtalechem. Depends on when you do something. Those things that depend on your actions, we're not counting in our Mishnah. I said, wait a second. But counting the Baal Tacher happens to depend on Korban Tamid Shel Shachar, we said, right? You have to bring Korban Tamid Shel Shachar, and you're still counting it. Mara says, no. Baal Tacher, Mimela Chayil. The start is from, again, this is the same answer we gave, just explain it a little bit more. The start of the clock of your Baal Tacher starts from when they bring the korban of Tamid Shel Shachar, but your Baal Tacher, if you just sit and do nothing, and you don't bring the korban, you're going to be over on the Isur of Baal Tacher automatically. But just sitting and doing nothing, you're going to be over on Baal Tacher, right? So therefore, it's counted in our Mishnah as an automatic Rosh Hashanah. V'harei yovelot, and the Gemara says, oh, yovel, it depends on you blowing the shofar. The answer is the same exact answer. It is Rabbi Ishmael ben Osher, Rabbi Yochanan ben Berokai, and therefore it started really from Rosh Hashanah, not from Yom Kippur. Remember, Rabbi Ishmael ben Osher, Rabbi Yochanan ben Berokai holds that Yovel really started from Rosh Hashanah, so that also starts automatically. I don't have to do a thing for the Rosh Hashanah to start. Fine. And one last thing, get this to the two dots. Rav Ashi Amar, Arba'a Rashi Shanim Hem. Right, this is the third answer now. We had Rava, we had Rav Nachum bar Yitzchak, and now we have Rav Ashi. Third of the Gemara. Says Rav Ashi, Arba'a Rashi Shanim Hem. You know why it's only 4 Rashi Hashanim that the Mishnah counts? It's Arba'a Rashi Hashanim Hem, Shehem Ba'arba'a Rashi Chodashim. So we are only counting things that are in the first day of the month. It happened to be on Rosh Chodesh. Chodesh Nisan, Rosh Hashanah leMelachim, right? Rosh Chodesh Adar, Rosh Hashanah leMaaseh Be'emah, Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah leShanim veYovelot, Rosh Chodesh Shabbat is Rosh Hashanah leIlanot, right? But and that's the 4 that we count. That's why it's 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, right? What's the obvious question on that? The last one is only according to Bet Shammai. Bet Shammai is the one that holds Rosh Chodesh Shvat is Rosh Hashanah leIlanot. But Hillel really holds what? 15, Tu Shvat, right? So when I ask that question, what I say is, oh, you're going according to Bet Shammai? That's a surprise. Bet Shammai, we don't count Bet Shammai really that seriously. Says the Gemara, Be'echad b'Shvat, Bet Shammai. The Gemara says, no, Hachi Kamar. Shlosha ledivra kol, Be'echad b'Shvat, Machloket Bet Shammai u'Bet Hillel. We're still counting the things that are on Rosh Chodesh, all of them, but one of them happens to be Machloket Bet Shammai Bet Hillel. I'm not telling you what I'm paskening like. I'm just telling you that in the Rosh Chodeshes that they become Rosh Hashanah, there are 4 of them, and those are the 4 we count. Happens to be that one of them is Machloket Bet Hillel Bet Shammai, and we're paskening like Bet Hillel. But the Maaseh, we have the count of the Mishnah. So now we basically went through the perhaps the most difficult part of this Mishnah was putting everything together and figuring out why we're counting the way we're counting and who is the anonymous author of the Mishnah. So we went through the bumpiest part of it today. Now I hope it was made clear at least what. But it's if you listen to it at least one more time, you'll get it all clear. It's very simple. It's not a complicated sugya. It's just a lot of back and forth. To keep your head straight, we went back and forth a few times today to make it as clear as possible. Perhaps another chazara will definitely help, but we're going to now discuss the next line of the Mishnah, which is going to be extremely, extremely involved in Geshmak.